Well, I'm joined now by the host of Michael Knowles' show, Michael Knowles, Wajahat Ali from the Democracy-ish podcast, and the Republican spokeswoman, Elizabeth Pipko. Welcome to all of you. Elizabeth Pipko, let me start with you. How concerned are you that the mood music has moved from hero Trump survives assassin's bullet and polls are surging and there's no way he could possibly lose to old man Biden, to suddenly now all the talk is resurgent Democrats, younger nominee, galvanizing support in a way that Biden never could. You must be concerned as a party, aren't you?
I wouldn't say concerned. If I'm being honest, we all see the excitement behind Kamala Harris. We all know what it means to have a movement like this because we have our own, right? We know what it means when you can raise record amounts of donations. We know what it means when people come out in droves to your rallies. I don't think what she has compares to the movement behind Donald Trump, but I 100% agree it's a different race than it was against Joe Biden. At the same time, I was just watching your show with Harry and Tyrus, and I think everything Tyrus said remains true. We fight on policy and policy alone. The American people are not happy with the policies they've seen from this administration. Kamala Harris owns that record. She was a part of that ticket, a part of that administration, and on policy alone, we hands down will win this election.
The problem, it seems to me, is that Donald Trump can call Joe Biden dumb as a rock or a lunatic, and nobody really cares. But the moment he starts saying it about Kamala Harris, even I'm wincing a bit. It's like, it's not a good look. It's kind of, for want of a better phrase, it's kind of ungentlemanly. And so his narrative and rhetoric has to change, doesn't it, Elizabeth? I mean, you wouldn't like being called dumb as a rock, would you?
I definitely would not, though it happens quite a bit. I won't lie to you. Look, I 100% agree. I think that the debate that we saw against Joe Biden has to be a very good starting point for the next 3 months, which we didn't expect to be the campaign that it will inevitably be now. I think Donald Trump proved that he's able to keep substance at the forefront of the debate, on the forefront of his mind. And I think, like you said, that is the only way to win this fight. The American people are sick of being as divided and as attacked as we constantly have been for the last 4 years. And I truly think the only way forward is to leave those attacks behind. I certainly will never utter any words like that from my mouth. That's not what I believe in. That's not the America that I want. And I think the best foot forward is a strict policy debate. That's all that matters at this point. The American people know that they're not happy with the policies the Democrats have put forward. They want Donald Trump to be there to answer their questions and solve their problems. And that is, like you said, the only way that he's going to win this fight.
Before I turn to the other two for their response to this, have you had this conversation with Donald Trump? Have you said to him, dial it down with that kind of chat about Kamala Harris?
I personally have not. I can tell you he talks regularly with people around him, and he's also incredibly intuitive. He knows what kind of race this is. I believe him when he says he wants nothing but unity moving forward. I believe the assassination attempt changed him as a human. I believe he wants to win this race. I believe he wants to save this country and make it better. And I believe he knows the best way to do that. And I do believe we'll see a different Donald Trump moving forward because he knows what he needs to do to win the race. And that is a calmer, more focused, more substantive debate and more substantive Donald Trump.
OK, let's go to the other two. Michael Knowles, there's no doubt the dynamic of this race has changed. Do you think it's going to change the result?
I don't think so. I don't think you're really seeing that in the polls. In the polls, Trump is still looking pretty good, especially in the swing states, and especially when you consider the distinction between the Electoral College and the popular vote. I think this is why you have some leading Democrats who are saying that they actually don't want to be the vice president. They don't want to be the running mate. They don't really want to challenge Kamala. And so there is some new energy. I totally agree with that. But Kamala has some major vulnerabilities here. As you pointed out, Piers, in the previous segment, Kamala was the most liberal member of the Senate when she was there. Your previous guest, Harry Sisson, said something that wasn't true. He said that she was not for Medicare for all. She was. You can see it on her Medium blog page from 2019, My Plan for Medicare for All. And she was far to the left on so many other issues. The other big vulnerability is that though the Democrats want to deny it now, in March of 2021, President Biden said that Kamala Harris was going to be in charge of the border policy. So, they're trying to change their news stories on it. But he said, I'm putting her in the lead of immigration. That has been the most monumental failure of the Biden administration, and it ranks toward the top of people's issues.
Someone did a big mashup, and it had all the liberal commentators and anchors at CNN, MSNBC, and so on, all denying yesterday that she'd ever been called the border czar. And then someone had clipped up evidence that their own networks had indeed called her the border czar. And I think that's a really significant debate to be had, because it's indisputable that she was depicted that way. And there's no doubt, if you then accept that she was the border czar, that her management of the border as the czar has been a complete and utter disaster.
Of course. Piers, I actually have Biden's exact words. I just finished broadcasting my own show, and I even second-guessed myself. I said, maybe I misunderstood. I seem to recall every news organization reporting this, but maybe I was wrong. No, he said on March 24th, I have asked her, the VP today, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that are going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. It's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort. And he even turns to her, he says, Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job. So it is a tough job. She totally failed, and they got to answer for it.
Yeah, I mean, Wajahat, there's no doubt she was put in charge of solving the border crisis. We've just heard it from Biden's own voice. Why are people on the left trying to deny that?
We're not trying to deny anything. We have a prosecutor against a predator, and now the oldest person to ever run for president, Donald Trump, who, by the way, did not do a 180 after surviving the assassination attempt. He did a 360. He's exactly the same person he was. You're talking about Axios. Axios referred to her as the border czar, and then Axios later corrected itself yesterday. Look, if I'm the Democrats, I'd run on the border compared to Trump. Sure. You know why? Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris proposed one of the strictest immigration reform bills, that they had the bipartisan unity with conservatives. And guess who tanked it? Donald Trump. Republicans said that Donald Trump called him up and decided to tank this border bill, this bipartisan border bill, because he knew it would help Joe Biden. So a person who does not care about security and the border, that's Donald Trump. Also, as of today, the lowest border crossings, even lower than Donald Trump, is happening in what? The Biden-Harris administration. And talking about immigration and the border, guess who wants to deport up to 15 million people illegally? Donald Trump. He's running on it. Guess who wants to create camps? Donald Trump. So I'm perfectly fine with liberals and this growing multiracial, multicultural coalition. Like you said, Piers, there's enthusiasm, there's excitement, especially with women, with young people, with people of color against Donald Trump. And I don't think Donald Trump can stop being Donald Trump. It just took 3 days, and we saw the RNC conference, the first 30 minutes of the speech. He was doing pretty well. And then he did 9,000 words off script. And he talked about Hannibal Lecter, and he mocked Nancy Pelosi with the hammer. He called her crazy. He did the post on Truth Social. He misspelled poll with poll. He called lying Kamala. And then Mike Johnson, Piers, the leader of the House Republicans, had to tell his party to not be racist. When you're off the gate starting like that, you're on the losing tip. That's my prediction.
All right, Elizabeth, there's a lot to unpack there from Wajahat, as you'd imagine. I mean, it was a brilliantly valiant attempt at hiding the fact that Kamala Harris said to the world, don't come in, and then 8 million people have probably come in. By any yardstick, whether you're Democrat or Republican, the Biden administration's handling of the southern border has been a fiasco, and her name is on that. It was her job, as we heard from Michael there, from the words of President Biden. She was the border czar.
She was. And I believe you said 8 million. People believe it's actually possible that it's much higher than that. Look, we can go back and forth for hours and debate the fact that she was the border czar or wasn't the border czar. The fact is that people are unhappy with the border, right? Polling shows that people are unhappy with the state of this country, and the border and immigration is one of those main issues on their mind. The current administration, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, take full responsibility for that. I don't think anyone is going to believe that Kamala and Joe Biden are not responsible for this. And I think it's silly to go back and forth and claim something otherwise. For us, it's simply about policy and it's about the facts. And I understand going back and forth about personality and Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris and what attacks will come out and what won't. But the fact is, today, the American people say they're unhappy with several policies from this administration. They're unhappy with several things going on in this country and around the world. And this administration has full blame for all of that.
OK, Michael Knowles, there's no doubt, notwithstanding all this, that the race has change in the sense of a lot more energy for the Democrats, a lot more youth in their candidate than they had before. And it's going to be, I would imagine, it's going to be a closer race than it could have been. Donald Trump, as we've heard from other guests today, one of his biggest opponents is himself and his mouth. How careful does he have to be, do you think, in terms of how he talks to Kamala Harris? Particularly if, for example, they do get it on a debate stage in September. Because if we thought the last debate was electric and consequential in the way it went down, you can only imagine how big it's going to be with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris standing there for 90 minutes. So how careful does he have to be?
Trump needs to change the way that he speaks based on whether he's speaking to a man or a woman. Of course, this is true. Trump knows this. He ran against a woman in 2016, and he beat a woman in 2016. And Republicans, unlike our Democrat friends, do know the difference between men and women. So, of course, he's going to have to use different rhetoric. But I'm not all concerned about it. I think he's going to do just fine. When they tried to hammer him on rude language to women in 2016, of course, he said, I only use that language about Rosie O'Donnell, and he sort of laughed it off, and it seemed to work out just fine. Meanwhile, you're going to hear the rhetoric of Kamala Harris. She's going to, it seems, continue this campaign theme that Trump is an existential threat to democracy that Biden has been pushing. That, of course, established the premise that would justify the assassination attempt. So I think that's perilous rhetorical ground for the Democrats. And then you're going to hear a lot of vague rhetoric. The famous line from Kamala, the only one we hear repeated over and over, is that she wants to imagine what can be unburdened by what has been. You saw in Kamala's first campaign commercial, it's all just about freedom in the abstract. Yes, she runs on abortion. Yes, she runs on guns, issues that she can always harp on in the future. But she doesn't run on anything else that is specific, because her record on the economy, on her administration's record on national security, on the border, on foreign affairs, it's so dismal. She doesn't seem to have a vision that resonates with people. That's why when she ran for president, she had to get out of the race before the first primary.